So, qualifying around the Marina Bay Street Circuit for the Singapore Grand Prix in 2024 has been concluded, one of the most important qualifying sessions of the year because of how prevalent it is winning the race from pole position and also how tough this race is as well. But what were the things that we learned? What were the main highlights of today's qualifying? Well, here are 5 things that we learned from Singapore Grand Prix qualifying earlier today. So, first let's focus on Williams. There has been a lot of attention on Williams, of course, because they got a double points finish in Baku, which wasn't completely out of the blue really because of how good they are at that track over the years, but Singapore is normally quite a poor circuit for them. However, they were looking much better in this one. In fact, they almost made it through to Q3 again, but Colapinto and Alex Albon just missed out on that in the end. Colapinto in P12, Albon down in P11. I mean, Colapinto was coming over the radio saying, "Oh, I've let you guys down, I'm sorry for this," but he's absolutely not letting anybody down. He's right behind his much more experienced and much more highly rated teammate again in qualifying. So I think it's a very good effort for him and Williams, and with how tough this race is, how likely mistakes are ahead of them, they are very much in with a shot of more points this weekend. But yeah, great for Williams. Really terrible though for Sergio Perez. I mean, he had a great weekend in Baku up until the crash, which some people blame him for. I personally think it was a racing incident. I've already gone through that, but if you're going to blame anybody, for me, Perez was at fault, but he was definitely at fault for this again today though, behind both of the Williams. P13. This is a race that this guy has won before as well. He won here back in 2022, and it's also, it's not the best race for Red Bull overall, really. I mean, they have struggled here at the past in times, but you would never guess that from Max Verstappen. And Max is Max back on form? Is that something that we've learned this weekend as well? In P2, not a bad effort at all, really. So yeah, Max Verstappen seems to be getting much more out of that car this weekend, again, like he normally does, than his teammate Sergio Perez. Third thing we learned is that Carlos Sainz had a nasty crash as well through the final corner in Q3, and he actually caused a red flag because of that as well early on in that session when he was doing his timed run. Charles Leclerc as well completed what was a really bad day for Ferrari. He actually did a decent lap time in Q3 after the red flag. However, his lap time was deleted. I'm going to assume that was because of track limits somewhere. I haven't seen the replays of it, but yeah, I think that means that both of them are P9 and P10, which with how hard it is to overtake around Singapore, that's really bad. And this is a race as well they would have been expecting to do well because they did win here last year as well with Carlos Sainz, of course, the only non-Red Bull win of the year in 2023. And in 2024, it doesn't look like it's going to be another Ferrari win this weekend. I think that's pretty safe to say. Mercedes were looking really good as well. I mean, they had some really tricky conditions in practice earlier on. In qualifying one as well, George Russell was really complaining about the car, saying it felt nothing like FP3. The tyres were terrible. But you'd never guess that with how they actually ended up. Lewis Hamilton qualifying in P3 and George Russell in P4, locking out the second row. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, is that Mercedes' best qualifying of the year? At least one of them anyway. And a real return to form after a tricky couple of races for them at Monza and in particular at Baku, where really they were miles off it but looked into a podium with George Russell. So yeah, looking like they're going to get another podium, but this time much more well deserved. But on pole position, we've not spoke about him so far. Lando Norris, he's qualified on pole by 2 tenths ahead of Max Verstappen. A really good lap for him in the end there. I mean, he has shown he's got some incredible pace. He was fastest in FP2. If you saw my Friday practice review for Singapore, you'll have seen that, of course. Oscar Piastri, less impressive, not quite hooking it up in the final qualifying session. He ended up down in P5, but McLaren in with a decent shot of the victory tomorrow, of course. But then again, this is Lando Norris. He has never led from pole position on lap 1. He hasn't gained any positions throughout the entire of this season. I know he can't gain these positions tomorrow because he's starting from P1, but if he slips behind Max Verstappen, we know how difficult this track is to overtake, and that's going to be really playing on his mind tonight as he rests ahead of the Singapore Grand Prix on Sunday. But yeah, there we go, guys. Those are the 5 things that we learned from qualifying at Singapore. Who's your pick for the win tomorrow? Honestly, I got a feeling Verstappen's going to do it. I really do. I've got a bad feeling that Lando Norris is going to mess up the start, but then again, he's due a good start. He's been through enough of bad ones, so let's see what happens. As a McLaren fan, I'm hoping for a Lando victory, but I'm not really expecting it, to be honest. But yeah, who's your prediction for the win tomorrow, and who was your biggest surprise of qualifying? For me, Mercedes qualifying P3 and P4, and Checo Perez, also a big surprise, but in a bad way, down in 13th. For much more Formula 1 content, keep it tuned here to the F1Chronicle.com. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and ring the bell as well to see much more F1 content here on the F1 Chronicle.